You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
No, I've already forgotten what you were saying.
Sorry, I'm just gonna turn my volume down.
No, you're fine.
Okay.
Yep. You're in the arts.
Okay.
And you have entrepreneurship background, and you work with students. So that all kind of relates to things I'm doing. How do you empower students to know about that stuff?
Well, I think part of it is letting the students know what I'm doing. So I just sent them an email this morning. I said, "Greetings from Iowa, where I'm doing this." Or 2 weeks ago when I was in Nevada, I was saying, "Hey, I'm in Nevada and this is what I'm doing." Or this last weekend I put on a national conference workshop, and I said to them, "This is how I got the money for it. And I applied for this grant, and so sharing the more about my life I share with them and the details shows them it's a possibility, because they just by hearing me talk about it, I'm talking about it casually, but I'm actually teaching them about it.
Right. That's really a good.
So for me, because something super important to me is intrinsic motivation, and extrinsic motivation is easy. I could dangle their grade in front of them, or a parent can say, "Hey, if you don't do what I want you to do, then you get a timeout, or you can't watch TV." But I think the most powerful motivation is intrinsic, which is what everyone says. Well, the same parent that says, "Hey, if you don't do this, you can't play your PlayStation,"
Right.
is the same parent that says, how come you don't have the initiative to just get up and do your X, Y, or Z, because they're not really giving them the opportunity to grow intrinsic motivation. And so for me, a lot of the things I try to do is subtle and subconscious. So if I'm just telling them about what I'm doing, I'm allowing them to have the internal conversations on their own inside their head without having to overtly talk about them. So I'm just trusting that this is happening inside of them.
Right. That's really powerful. So I'm gonna start walking. And so when you talk about you share these things with your students, how much time are you with, you're traveling a lot, and you're quite a bit of just hop on a plane and go somewhere. How often are you with the students?
I am, so everything, let's say online or social media, is more glamorous than it appears. I'm with them more than I'm not with them.
Okay.
So I spend about 33 weeks a year with them. And so that's pretty much most of the school year.
Okay.
And then I have an after-school program. It meets 5 days a week, and it's scheduled to meet for 3 hours a day after school. So technically I'm with them for 15 hours a week, which is more than any other teacher that they have in high school and middle school, and more than their parents probably see them. And then after, especially this year, because I just love importing and helping them, but I had to put a stop. At 5:30, I stop helping them, but I practice myself. So from maybe 5:30 to 7 or 7:30, I'm practicing, and they can just stay there.
Oh, that's so cool.
And so some of them stay and practice and stay for another hour, hour and a half, and just practice while I'm there. So I could see them technically 4 to 4.5 hours a day, 5 days a week. So sometimes I see them 20 hours a week after school.
Oh my gosh. So you really have a lot of impact. So how many students do you have?
So there are about 9 students in the program, because it's a pretty intense program. Again, 15 to 20 hours a week after school. Right. And also there's a culture of mediocrity and let's say about some of the city public education. And so here I show up and I want perfection.
Right.
I kind of, not only do I say almost is not good enough, I give them an example. I say, hey, those movies where that person is running away from that bad guy or the good guy, and they're jumping across building tops in a city? So imagine you're in that position, you're jumping across buildings, and you almost make it. what happens? And they think, like, okay, if I'm jumping across to another building and I almost make it, that means I don't make it.
Right.
So so then it gives them a new perspective of excellence. So they say, oh, I almost got it. So then I tell them that story of almost.
Oh, that's so true though, because so many people get, oh, I almost did good enough. And then you're falling short of what.
Yeah, and so literally in that example, you're falling.
Right. Well,
and dying.
Right. And we kind of talked about teaching in general and starting that semester with, hey, you've got, a national performance the next day. Let's talk about that a little bit more. What do you think that puts on the students, but also on you you see them for the first day and then they're doing a national performance?
Well, so much of education, whether it's high school, middle school, college, so much of college education or just all education is theoretical. And everything can be more laissez-faire when it's theoretical. Just okay, if I have a final due or if I have a paper due, yeah, you want to get it. You want to do it well because you want to get a good grade or you want to get a good job afterwards. But when you say to a kid, "Nice to meet you," in 2 days, even though you don't even know how to play this instrument, you're going to be performing at a national conference. That's not theoretical.
Right.
It's an actual. So and I think I say to them, I say, the last place you want to think, I wish I practiced more. The last place you want to think that is on a stage. so I tell them that. And because then they're on that stage and they look out into the audience and there's 300 people there, and whether they care or they don't care, it's public.
That is so, like you said, relating it to education, that's so true, of just, this is real life now.
Yeah, when I sit and I take the SAT, which I just had a nightmare that I had to take it without studying for it. But when I sit down and take the SAT, no one sees my answers, and no one but my parents and my schools ever sees my score. I can keep it completely private. But when you're on a stage, or when you're, let's say if you're a writer and you say, hey, your first project is to write an article for the school newspaper, or we're going to do a Facebook Live, it's good. You're sharing that with so many more people, and your work becomes public.
Right.
So then you start thinking about it a lot differently, a lot faster, because you realize that I think one of the things you want to talk about is community. It shows your responsibility to a wider community. If I'm like 11 and I don't want to do my homework, I feel like that's just my problem. My parents can give me all the reasons they want why it's not just my problem, but those don't resonate with me. But if I'm the same age and I'm on a baseball team, if I don't show up and there's not enough people to play the game is forfeited and my team loses, then I quickly learn that me showing up matters to other people. And I think we need more opportunities where kids can really, in real time, see not only that they matter, but why they matter.